moving right along, I want to ask you about just the Dodgers in the postseason. So, of course, as you mentioned earlier, always have a bullseye on the Dodgers' back, but then you add the fact that they set a new franchise record. They win 111 games, but they win just one postseason game. They get bounced by the little brother Padres down there in San Diego. And my question to you is, this Dodger team, a lot of people have said that it was because they weren't able to execute with runners in scoring position. They weren't able to get those timely base hits. They go 5 for 34. You yourself, you were a postseason monster. You won the Babe Ruth Award that goes to the best player in the postseason in 1981. You were one of 3 of your teammates to win the World Series MVP. What goes into being able to execute in the postseason? Is there a big difference between the regular season and the postseason when it comes to getting big hits?
Of course there is. I mean, this is what you've been playing for the whole year. I mean, this is why you're doing what you're doing. It is different. The intensity rises. There are a number of things that you could possibly put into the cookie jar and see what comes out. But, you know, they won the division handily. They had won the division earlier in the season, and it was not until the 1st of September before it was confirmed. But they didn't have any difficult games. There were no high-risk games going down the stretch. And if you remember, you know, the Mets and the Atlanta were battling for that title. The loser has to go and play a 3-game series with a wild card team, even though they're at home. The Padres and the Phillies had to battle down to the wire, and they got hot. And that's why they made it in. And, you know, now San Diego has to go to New York. And I really felt that in a short series, when you have to face DeGrom and Scherzer, and you have a closer like Diaz, that really, you're not going to score too many runs. And I would have thought that the rotation would have been DeGrom, Scherzer. I think that would have set a little bit different tone. You know, because then the Scherzer got whacked, and now they're relying on DeGrom. He goes out and does what he does. But anybody that will tell you that's been in this situation before, that anytime you get to the last game of best of 3, 5, or 7, anything can happen. I don't care who you got out there; it can happen. And the fact that they didn't win that first game, they could have closed it out with DeGrom. They would have been really high, but they didn't. And Padres got hot, and they were able to take it. And then, of course, the Braves ran into a hot Philly team as well. And then the rest of it, you know, kind of just comes apart. The Dodgers did not execute, and you can say that they went in kind of, you know, ho-hum, and they had some, you know, they had more time off than they probably needed. They needed to be sharp. They caught him on a low, but if you remember, the Dodgers came out of the chute. They won the first game rather handily.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, they couldn't hit with runners in scoring position, and, you know, they got outplayed. Simple as that.
So in those situations, what is your approach? What is going through your mind when you do have to come up with a big hit in a big situation in the postseason versus the regular season? What are you looking for when you see this Dodger team's inability to do that? What do you think caused that?
It could have just been a lack of confidence. You know, there's no guarantee that after you play 162 games and you go into the playoffs that you're on a high note. You know, individually, you hope that, you know, you're kind of, you know, I'm going to get a peak performance here, like they do in swimming and track and field. Well, in baseball, it's a little different. You know, they didn't play a significant game for, you know, months.
Yeah.
Right. And after a while, you know, I'm not saying that you weren't trying, because they were still winning a lot of games, but the intensity level there. And when you increase the intensity level, when you have been kind of walking through this, then it affects people different ways. They start, you know, grinding it, you know. And I thought they've really gotten to a position where they were really grinding. They were trying to find it, and they couldn't find it.
Yeah, so you basically attribute that to a lot of that meaningless baseball. They were out in front. They won the division by so many games. And then you had that big layoff, and then you have to turn it on against a Padres team that has all that momentum. They want nothing more than to beat the Dodgers, and they did just that. But yeah, I want to ask you also, because you guys in that 1981 run, you were facing multi-game deficits the entire postseason run. The Astros, the Expos, the Yankees, you were down 0-2. You basically had those juices flowing the entire time. But do you think there is something to be said about the postseason being a crapshoot? A lot of people say it's about who's the hottest team at the right time. But on the flip side, the Astros, they won 106 games. They were a team that had the layoff. They went on to win it. But what's your take on people saying that the postseason is a crapshoot?
Well, first of all, like I said, anytime you get down to the best you get to the last game of the best of the 3, 5, or 7, anything can happen. Obviously, talent-wise, if you win 20 more games than somebody during the course of the regular season, you've got a lot more firepower. It didn't happen for whatever reason. And you got to give a lot of credit to these people. They fought back. And the Dodgers did not respond. And, I think they started to feel the pressure. And when you do, all of this can happen. But, I was kind of really surprised, too, that we had so many players in the lineup, the Dodgers had so many players in the lineup that were hovering around 200. You're basically relying on 3 people, maybe 4. And they've got to carry the weight. So if the 3 top guys in the top of the lineup, and then you add Will Smith in the 4th spot, if they're not getting it done, the bottom half of the lineup, you're looking at 3 200 hitters, and how do you expect to be able to do that? I mean, this game obviously is a different game because it's a strikeout home run game. We strike out more than we get base hits in baseball now, and it's happened 4 or 5 years in a row, and I'm not sure about this year, but I think it's fairly close. But when you give away 3 innings a game, and then you rely on, those guys to pull you through, and they don't get it done, then, your opportunities are short and sweet, okay? And we don't play the game like you saw and grew up with if you were a fan years and years ago. There's no hitting and running. There's no bunting, even when you might think it might be a bunting. We took the DH and put it into the National League, so there's less bunting now for the National League. And nobody bunts on their own. They might drop one down here or there, but not to say it's significant. And we are a stationary game today. We go base to base. There's not a lot of challenges going on. So you have bullpen games. You have guys removed after 5 innings. You're throwing shutouts. We all understand that this is the new way, but it's kind of hard to understand it from a purist's form of how you play the game, because your guy's rolling along. He's under the pinch count, hasn't walked anybody, hasn't given up any runs. Why do you turn it over? So these are questions that, management can answer. And, I'm just an observant former player.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's really the 3 true outcomes in this day and age, and you're not seeing as much hitting for contact. Players aren't executing. When you just need a base hit with runners in scoring position, just put the ball in play, and they fail to do that too many times.